Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashoda Nandana Prajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajagacharya Ashtotara Shatra Shri Srimad Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Nantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Country of Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Yeah. Sixth canto. Does anyone remember? But does anyone remember the name of the canto? Yeah. Prescribed duties for mankind. Yes. Prescribed duties for mankind. Prescribed duties for mankind. Chapter 10, the battle between the demigods and Vritrasura. Text 10. If everybody could please repeat after me. Aho Dainyam Aho Kashtam Para Kai Chana Bangurai Yan No Pakuryad Asvartar Martyaha Swa Gati Vigrahai Aho Dainyam Aho Kashtam Para Kai Chana Bangurai Yanno Pakuryat Asvartar Martyasva Gati Vigrahai Aho dainyam aho kashtam Parakyai chanabangurai Yannapakuryat asvartair Martiswa gati vigrahai Aho dainyam aho kashtam Parakyai chanabangurai Yannopakuryat asvartar Martiswa gyati vigrahi. Please chant. Aho, alas, dainyam, a miserable condition. Aho, alas, kashtam, simply tribulation. Harakai, which after death are eatables by dogs and jackals. Chana bangurai, perishable at any moment. Yet, because not upakuryat would help. Aswa artai, not meant for self-interest. Martyaha, a living entity destined to die. Swa, with his wealth. Gati, relatives and friends. Vigrahi, and his body. Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. This body, which is eatable by jackals and dogs after death, does not actually do any good for me, the spirit soul. It is usable only for a short time and may perish at any moment. The body and its possessions, its riches and relatives must all be engaged for the benefit of others, or else they will be sources of tribulation and misery. Purport. Similar advice is also given in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 22, Text 35. Etava janmasalpalyam dehinam ihadehishu pranar artar diyavacha shaya archanam sada. It is a duty of every living being to perform welfare activities for the benefit of others with his life, wealth, intelligence, and words. This is the mission of life. One's own body and the bodies of his friends and relatives, as well as one's own riches and everything else one has, should be engaged for the benefit of others. This is the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. As stated in Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi 941, Bharati Bhumita Hoila Manusha Janma Sataka Kari Kara Para Upakar. One who has taken birth as a human being in the land of India, Bharatvarsha, should make his life successful and work for the benefit of all other people. The word upakuryat means para upakar, helping others. Of course, in human society, there are many institutions to help others. But because philanthropists do not know how to help others, their propensity for philanthropy is ineffectual. They do not know the ultimate goal of life, Shreya Archanam, which is to please the Supreme Lord. If all philanthropic and humanitarian activities were directed toward achieving the ultimate goal of life, to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they would all be perfect. Humanitarian work without Krishna is nothing. Krishna must be brought to the center of all our activities, otherwise no activity will have value. Om Ganativedandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshulan Meditam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karidvachalam Pangam Langa Tegirim Yak Kripatamaham Vande Shri Gurun Deditaradam Vancha Kapladavishta Kripasana Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna. Translation again. This body, which is eatable by jackals and dogs after death, does not actually do any good for me, the spirit soul. It is usable only for a short time and may perish at any moment. The body and its possessions, its riches and relatives must all be engaged for the benefit of others, or else they will be sources of tribulation and misery. So to make progress in Krishna consciousness, an individual platform and a collective platform, it's required that this commitment is required. And if we analyze our journey, or if we analyze others' journey in Krishna consciousness, it's just different, you could say, levels of commitment. People come to the temple, okay, well, check it out. Let me see what's going on here. And then they commit, okay, I'll come to some classes. Or I'll come to the Sunday feast or the Krishna lounge. So they're committing to that. And then they say, okay, well, I'll commit to following some of these principles. And then I'll commit to reading, I'll commit to a certain number of chanting on beads and so on. So they keep on, you'd say, further committing themselves to the point of initiation, second initiation, and on and on and on, committing. And then it's a daily, moment-by-moment commitment. And without that element of commitment, then, and furthering the commitment over time, then yeah, there's no question of progress. So, and in order to be committed, we have to be convinced that Krishna consciousness is the best thing I could be doing with my life. It's the best thing, so let me move forward. You have to be convinced and then committed. Just like you have this devotee, I mentioned it the last few times, and this devotee Radhanath Das, who was on he used to be part of the Radha Damodar bus party, which, I don't know, I think they had like something like 11, 15, something like Greyhound buses, and they had 12 vans following, and there are a bunch of brahmacharis and some sannyasis traveling all over America, distributing Prabhupada's books and doing Harinam and so on. So he's part of that group. And then, as a brahmachari, and then fast forward in his life, he came down with some disease. And the disease just completely wrecked his body. He's emaciated, and he could hardly move. He was in a wheelchair, and his legs amputated from the knees down. Well, another thing, he had to blend all of his food. I don't know if anyone's ever tried doing that before. Blending your food, yeah. Sometimes if you have teeth, work, devotees, you see them putting the rice and the dal and the sabji in a blender, and, So, but to continue like that, perpetually and by force, it's, So, anyways, but despite his condition of it was a very difficult condition. Despite that, he was still going on book distribution 5-6 days a week. He was going post office, grocery store, distributing Prabhupada's books. Yeah, and he gave me a book. And others. There's what's that devotee's name? Anyways, I'm forgetting. Another person who comes around also got a book from Radhanath Prabhu. So why? How was he able to do that? Because a lot of people say, "Hey, well, this. I mean, I can't go on books, Prabhu." You know? Right? Someone might say that I can't go on books because of this. But you could say that he had some reasons why not to go on books. Right? Amputated legs from down, emaciated, couldn't move. You know, but he made his arrangements to get out there. Because he was convinced. He was convinced that that I benefited from Srila Prabhupada's books. I benefited from this knowledge. I have attained this wonderful gift of Krishna consciousness from my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, and now I need to return the favor, so to speak. I need to try to do my part, pull my weight to try to contribute. He was convinced, and therefore committed. So we could become convinced by the great association of devotees, Srila Prabhupada reading his books, hearing his lectures, associating with followers of Srila Prabhupada, disciples, grand disciples, grand disciples, who are convinced. We could also become convinced and therefore committed, and therefore we can make progress towards the ultimate goal. And in a collective way, because after all, we're part of the Hare Krishna movement, there's a collective aspect to it as well. It's not an individualistic thing going on. It requires intelligence and organization to continue things, as Srila Prabhupada wanted them. There was two Christian preachers, 18th century. They were very enthusiastic, both of them. They differed in terms of theology, personality, organization, but they were both of them very enthusiastic. They would give about 10 sermons a week, 18,000 sermons, traveling extensively. So one of these persons, Gregory Whitefield, he didn't really stress so much the organization or leaving a structure for his followers, and therefore his particular contribution was you'd say a short-term contribution. It didn't continue after him. And there was the other person, John Wesley, who was known to be an organizer. He structured things very nicely. And therefore, there's such a thing as the Methodist Church. He left that and continued his particular mission. Continued how he wanted it. So, Srila Prabhupada, in a most intelligent way, has organized things and given us the structure by which things could be continued and expanded. And we just have to do our part. We don't have to change or add or reinvent anything. We just do our part. And in relation to this, there's a room conversation with Srila Prabhupada on July 17th, 1977 in Vrindavan. So, Tamal Krishna is Goswami speaking. So, the guiding principle should be that under no circumstance should we close a temple. Prabhupada. Then what is the preaching? Alexander the Great? He was conquering, and as soon as he went to conquer another place, the last place was lost. Suppose I have conquered Bombay, then I go to Karachi. In the meantime, Bombay is lost. That was being done to Alexander the Great. That means no proper management. Tamal Krishna Goswami. Too much expansion with not enough good management. Similarly, we should not expand too quickly. Prabhupada, therefore I'm stressing book selling more than opening temples. Tamal Krishna Goswami, oh yes, this is one of the reasons. I don't think many devotees think in terms of that, but this is a very practical point, that once you make the sale, the book will act. Prabhupada, yes, it will remain permanent. Goswami, it establishes itself as a deity within a person's home. Prabhupada, yes, now I have given my program, you tackle it, GBC men. At least don't make me like Alexander the Great in my lifetime. Prabhupada laughs. They say, you are great, 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 but don't make me small while I'm living. Tamal Krishna Goswami, or after, we will never make you that way. Prabhupada, that's my request. Tamal Krishna Goswami, you've always said to us, at least whatever we have, maintain it. Srila Prabhupada. And people are recognizing that I'm great. Don't make me small. I'll not give you much trouble, but I am now invalid. What can I do? So this is from this book, Garga Muni, Purna Pragya. It's written about Garga Muni, Prabhupada's disciple. It's called Garga Muni. This is a book by Purna Pragya, serving Srila Prabhupada, 1966 and 1977. Somewhat new book. And this is his, I'm not sure, I guess it's Garga Muni's, Prabhu's. In what sense did Srila, that's his reflection, in what sense did Srila Prabhupada request the GBC to not make him like Alexander the Great? Alexander the Great would conquer a country, leave some men there to manage it, and then move on to conquer somewhere else. After Alexander's departure, the local people would revolt and kick out the men Alexander left behind from the conquered land. So the idea is to preach vigorously and to manage. Much of management is managing the results of preaching in such a way as where things could go on and powerfully and not crumble. So we should take ownership in a humble way, in a Krishna conscious way, of the mission of the spiritual master of a particular yatra or temple, such as New Govardhan. We should take some ownership, not think, oh, Krishna will take care, or this devotee, that devotee, they'll take care. I don't need to take care. We should be responsible and take care, as Prabhupada's requesting. Don't let things crumble. Like Tamal Krishna Goswami, or like Prabhupada told Tamal Krishna Goswami about the Juhu property. Prabhupada told him that you shouldn't let 1 inch of this property deteriorate. So it's important that we think like in those terms. And as Srila Prabhupada's disciple, Sridhar Swami, was asked one time how to have a successful temple, Sridhar Swami, Prabhupada's disciple, said, because there's many Sridhar Swamis, but Prabhupada's disciple said, you need 10 men and 10 dedicated, committed men and 10 years. Now, of course, anyways, years ago, I remember we went on some bit of a camping trip with Mahatattva Prabhu at the time and a number of brahmacharis. I don't know, maybe about a large number, maybe 20, something like that. Yeah, they're all from here. Yeah, they're all San Diego brahmacharis. So, and a number of them are still around and practicing and having faith in Krishna and Prabhupada, and some of them had some different types of crisis in their life, and lost their faith and things like that. But anyways, we were there one time, and then we were there. I think Kanai was also there. He was taking pictures, of course. He's always taking pictures. So, and then Mahat Tattva Prabhu said at the time, he went up to me and kind of whispered to me, and he said, "You see all these devotees?" He said, "They're all going to leave." I said, "Oh, interesting." And yeah, gradually they did. One by one, in different ways. They left good terms, mediocre terms, ugly terms. But it was interesting. And I remember also having a like a meeting with us, and one time it was a bit of a different batch. And he was encouraging us, okay, let's be committed, let's do something. And but the thing is, just because some people have left, and there's been a lot of people left, doesn't mean all people have to leave, and it doesn't mean we have to. And that's the idea, that we should be committed, we should be responsible, we should take ownership. They say ownership turns sand into gold, right? Means if we take some ownership in a humble Krishna conscious way, then we could do a lot of good for ourselves and others, and we could give a lot of pleasure to our spiritual master and to Srila Prabhupada and to the disciplic succession. So Tamal Krishna Goswami, he was saying that about leaving a temple open means we shouldn't close a temple once it's opened. Like every year we get mail in the year. Every year we get mail in the mailbox, and it's some real estate agent, and he gives us some cheesy letter that is not handwritten, but it's written by some digitalized, but it looks handwritten, and it says, "We were looking at your property and we were very interested." More or less, it's saying this. So please give us a call anytime you like, and we'll give you cash for this property. Close the temple, and we're going to build some more apartments, right? Stack up the money. So every year that letter's coming. But what do we do with that letter? We just rip it up and throw it away. And there's so many businesses here in Pacific Beach that open and close all the time. There's very few businesses here in the whole of PB that have been open for years, like 1977, this temple. There's some churches probably, and a few other places, but it's not automatic that we say, okay, we're going strong, right? 50-year anniversary. It's great, but it's not automatic. There's a lot of work that's been put into, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and commitment. So we should also feel that, let me put in time. And it's not automatic in the sense that a temple may be open, factually open, means the doors are open for people. But the temple also means the residents and the people, and they have to give what the temple is supposed to give. And what is that? Sadhu Sangha, right? Association with saintly persons. Pure understanding of the philosophy, a pure example of what it means to be a devotee, right? Or else, how much is the temple really actually fulfilling its mission? Or just, you could say the temple is open, but the members of the temple, or the people who are running or trying to keep things going, they have to be open to people. Like people come here and they want association, so devotees should give them association. That's what they're coming for. They're coming for prasadam, they're coming for kirtan, sure. But they're also coming for association. And after all, that's really how they are able to make further commitment by association. And if we analyze anybody's level of commitment in Krishna consciousness, we'll see that it's very personal. Means they're committed because real living persons have inspired them to be committed. Like I remember there was one person living outside of the temple, and they were working at like a elderly folks' home. And, they were on the verge of joining. So some, one of the leaders of the temple, they were meeting with a particular person. And now, I actually misunderstood what the leader said to this particular young man, but later on I realized. So the leader was trying to encourage this person, you should join the temple, this reason, this reason. And then he said something like, yeah, you're taking care of these elderly people, but, there's so many, materialistic elderly people. There's so much help the world needs in Krishna consciousness, And he said, these people are about to drop over and die, something like that. Now, I misunderstood that. I was thinking, wow, that's really heavy. I can't believe he just said that, because I thought he was talking about his parents. I was thinking, wow, that was like really intense. But later on, I realized he was talking about the people he was working with. And then later, that devotee joined the temple. But if you really analyze it, it means that somebody has personally inspired us to make further commitments. So in other words, we also need to do that with people to whatever degree we can. Try to encourage them. Hey, make some commitments. And this is what Srila Prabhupada is saying. He's quoting this Bhagavatam verse, Etavad janmasal palayam dehinam ihideshu pranar artha diyavacha, that one should work for the benefit of others with their life, with their wealth, with their intelligence, with their words. And Prabhupada says this is the mission of life. So it's not like it's some secondary thing we're doing. Like, oh yeah, it's just something I do. It's like, yeah, I take care of this, I take care of that, I take care of so many things. And yeah, I also help people sometimes when I feel like it, when I'm feeling merciful. But Prabhupada says it's not that it's like a side thing. Or as one devotee would like to say very often, it's not that Krishna consciousness is like the spice of life or something. It's just something that kind of spice up life. But it's actually the mission. The mission is to work for the benefit of others, help them to become Krishna conscious. And here we have this amazing example. Srila Prabhupada's relating this to this particular Dadichi, who was able just to sacrifice literally his body. Take it. So we should be willing to sacrifice. And after all, if we don't sacrifice for Krishna and the spiritual master, we're going to be performing another type of sacrifice. And you know who that's for? The illusory energy of the Lord. We're just going to be sacrificing for Maya. And it's not that people aren't sacrificing. People are doing big time sacrificing. But they're sacrificing for the wrong reasons, for the Maya and all different types of forms of illusion. So we have to sacrifice. There's no question about to sacrifice or not to sacrifice. It's just a question of who we're going to sacrifice for. So this is what this particular section of the Bhagavatam is encouraged. Srila Prabhupada is encouraging us. We should sacrifice for Krishna, and we should appreciate. Not everyone could sacrifice. Everyone's levels of sacrifices are different. People sacrifice in different ways. Like you have Mayapur Shashi up there at the BBT, made a big sacrifice as the treasurer for the Los Angeles temple. so many decades. You have Ratnabhushan making Rath Yatra carts and traveling all over the United States. He makes them and he also takes them to different places. Still, to this day, he's taking them because, devotees, they don't have anywhere to store them, so he drives them out there to Las Vegas, to Phoenix, here, there, for so many decades. You have so many devotees. You have Brigupati Prabhu distributing books for so many years, and other devotees distributing books for so many other years. Vijay Prabhu, and so you have some devotees who really dedicated themselves to cow protection. So this is all within the mission of Srila Prabhupada, and it's all meant to be for the pleasure of Srila Prabhupada. So we should appreciate those different sacrifices that devotees make, and also some people's just level of ability is different. Like, for example, the famous one is in Ram's pastimes, Ramchandra, right? Hanuman, he was really enthusiastic, and he was, throwing these big boulders in the sea, and they're floating, to Lanka, the bridge to Lanka. And then, you had a little, what did they say? Spider, squirrel, yeah. So he had this, and he's just kind of throwing but that was his level of capacity. That's what he could do, based on his body, based on his mind, that's what he could do. Now, this particular story is not an excuse for laziness or lack of energy, but it's just some people have different abilities, and they're able to. You put somebody in the role of the temple president, the temple's going to shut down really soon. They're going to mess up the bills. Everybody's going to run away. Anyways, on and on. So we should appreciate. So does anybody have any question or comment? Okay.
If you forgive me, we have this kind of seminal verse, very important verse, quoted in the purport. And then it ends with intelligence in words. It is the duty of every living being to perform welfare activities for the benefit of others with life, intelligent words. And close the quote. I think the next line is part of the verse. This is the mission of life. That's the Janma Sabhalyam. This is make your life fruitful.
Yeah.
So that's important to realize. That's Krishna's saying that is.
Yeah.
Well, I have a question. If no one knows it. Why should I? It puts me in too much anxiety to take responsibility for this or that or be in charge, and I just want to remember Krishna. So why take on all this burden and anxiety? Being in charge, people are happy, not happy, tell me, no. I'm just going to chant Hare Krishna.
Well, it's, I mean, not, if we analyze society or societies throughout time, it's not that everyone was, you could say, part of the core group of a particular institution. Like, for example, in the Gaudiya Math, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's institution, mainly it was the brahmacharis and sannyasis who were the main preachers, means traveling and preaching widely, and he had them, very engaged. Of course, we're not going to get into the whole history of the Gaudiya Math right now, but and then you had devotees like some of his two major, Ananta Vasudeva and Kunja Bihari, he's like two right-hand men, and they were managing things. And it said that Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, in this Bhakti Siddhanta Vaibhava book, Bhakti Vikas Swami wrote, said that he was mostly lecturing and preaching to the devotees and studying, and he would do travel, obviously. And he was leaving much of the management to these devotees, some of his men. So it's not that everyone has to. I mean, somebody has to manage. Somebody has to take on the mission of management. Someone has to take. A number of people have to take. Mission of preaching, someone has to take, and also they go together. But in terms of it fills me with too much anxiety and this and that. I would say it's good anxiety. It's anxiety that, I mean, is the world not full of anxiety? Everybody's full of anxiety. But this particular anxiety we take on for managing, for preaching, for trying to keep things going, it's a good anxiety. It's an anxiety that actually brings bliss. It's you could say, labor of love. It is not something that drags us down. And if we're not taking on this anxiety, we're probably going to be experiencing another anxiety. Yeah. We're going to be experiencing the anxiety of the material world. It's like sometimes brahmacharis, they say, oh, it's difficult, this, that, so my mind, my senses, I went to sleep late, I went to sleep early, there wasn't proper prasadam, I'm trying to, people are giving me a hard time, this, that, it's just, it's too much. Like their mind is experiencing so much anxiety. Okay, there's some, fine, I accept. But there's one brahmachari, he kept on telling me that, he's not here anymore, and I was like, come on, what's your problem? Just mellow out. And I was saying it's you think that brahmachari life is difficult, but okay, move outside. You don't think that the grihastas are having difficulties? They have to deal with their boss and timelines, deadlines. You have to have your work done by Saturday afternoon, or and paying this so many expenses and working very hard. I mean, it's not that they're just sitting back and drinking lemonade and getting their bosses massaging their feet or whatever. It's they're working hard. It's hard work, and it's anxiety. And then atop from that, they have to take care of their family, right? Wife, children. They have needs. They have wants. They have demands on time, financial demands. Like one devotee was given a class the other day, and they're mentioning that, I forgot who was saying, but they're saying, oh yeah, oh please give me this, the parents, mom, dad, give me this, right? And then one devotee was in the audience and he was laughing. And I was thinking, okay, you're laughing now, but he's outside the temple and it seems like he'll have children in the future. But I said, you're laughing now, but you might be crying later. So it's very, it's like kind of wringing somebody out, So yeah, and then they have to take care of their spiritual life, chanting the rounds and other things. So yeah, whatever situation we're going to be in, there's going to be some anxiety, there's going to be some pressure. But if we take on pressure, anxiety for preaching, for spreading the Krishna consciousness movement, it's good, and it brings great results. So yes. Region. Yes.
Share just a quick one on that. Thank you very much. Good answer. There was a devotee. He actually left his body quite some time ago, but somehow we used to get government surplus. They had a program, and it was very nice. And we used to get powdered milk and peanut butter and different stuff we used to use. And somehow or other, he was always in the kitchen, either getting ready to do the offering, on the altar, or ready to cook, when this truck showed up, and nobody was around. And so he always, had to help unload these bags. It happened 4 or 5 times. just by coincidence, Krishna's arrangement actually. He got so frustrated, he said, I didn't join this movement to just be a laborer, and he quit. He went home and lived with his mom. His mom made him get a job. He got a job at a nursery all day long, loading and unloading bags of cow manure. So I always thought there was sort of a wry sense of humor in that,
Yeah.
And then later on, actually his mom told him, you were happier, go back to the temple. And she dropped him off and he moved back into the temple. We need to relate. So either way, there's going to be hard work and anxiety. I was confirming your good point.
There was a Sankirtan devotee talking to Srila Prabhupada. He was actually a Sankirtan leader. He said, Prabhupada, some of the Sankirtan devotees, they were saying that there's too much anxiety, trying to convince people to take a book and give a donation. It's just too much anxiety.
Yeah.
And Prabhupada said, no, this is Krishna anxiety. This is good anxiety.
Yeah.
And he gave the example just like the gopis. They're in anxiety. Krishna's walking through the forest and there's pebbles on the ground, and Prabhupada said they become so much in anxiety they faint to see Krishna walking barefoot on the ground. He said Mother Yasoda and seeing Krishna going out in the forest, she's in anxiety. So although the spiritual world is called Vaikuntha, no anxiety, but there's spiritual anxiety, which is ecstasy, actually.
Yes.
I want to hit some. Don't turn it off. But also, when you take responsibility for Krishna, it's like, they've got those maps, and when they open a new branch, the light goes on that they've got a branch in this city, and different lights go on when you take responsibility for Krishna's concerned about all living entities. He's especially concerned about his devotees. And when a devotee takes responsibility, not just for managing things, but for caring for the devotees and making sure they get their prasadam, and they've got a building, and they've got enlivened deities, and they've got a good program, and tiny, making sure the lights are turned on, So that anxiety in service of devotees, a light goes on. Krishna actually said, oh, look at my devotee. And it creates a relationship. In that anxiety, what are we? We're a tiny jiva. We have to pray to Krishna, please help me. And Krishna does some amazing thing. So it actually is a taking responsibility is a process whereby our relationship with Krishna becomes very thick. It becomes real. What's theoretical, okay, there's Krishna, there's me, and devotional service ki jai. But when you take on responsibility, you have to actually practice it. And you see Krishna working in your life. You see Krishna actually performing his mystic power. Krishna becomes real, and the relationship becomes thick, and Krishna gives you special mercy. So it's a very wonderful way for Krishna to become real and your relationship to become thick. Like to cook down kheer, you need some heat, so it's a heat that actually thickens and cooks the relationship.
Yeah. Thank you for that comment. All right. Yes.
Well, I answered my own question, but a comment, you talked about commitment, and I've always been committed to myself and to staying alive, but it's only been in the last year that I've been connected to a collective thought, one thought, and it's been very powerful. I think we mentioned New Govardhan. Is that actually what we're working towards? Yeah, we're trying to take care of every square inch of the temple, but
New Govardhan is the name for this temple. There's like Govardhan.
Like New York, New Jersey, those are probably named temples.
Yeah.
This is named New Govardhan.
yeah, I should have known.
And if you look at this book from Sanatana Goswami, Brihad Bhagavatamrita, there's when Krishna goes to Dwarka from Vrindavan, he's there in Dwarka, and he's feeling great separation from the devotees of Vrindavan. What they do is they actually make what they call a Nava Vrindavan, which means new Vrindavan. And, there's like Mother Shoda there, and Nanda Maharaj, and the cowherd boys and the cowherd girls, but they're like statues. But Krishna's in so much, he's seen them as, they're there, so Prabhupada was going around America, New Vrindavan, and he didn't name New York, I think, right? Because it was already new. New Jagannath Puri, New Dwarka, and on and on. So, and then in New Vrindavan, since Prabhupada, he wanted there to be built 7 temples. They have the main temples of Vrindavan. So, like, it's a replica. And you have devotees doing that. And, like, for example, Govardhan Eco Village, they're done something. And then also you have Shivaram Swami, New Vrajadam. They've done like that in Hungary. So yeah, it was very kind of interesting an idea that Prabhupada was. But yeah, so it's New Govardhan. So yes, Tyler.
I had 2 questions. The first is a reflection of, or I guess a question for you based off the anecdote you shared about you and Mahatattva, and you were on the camping trip.
Yeah.
I know him pretty well, and I know his mood. He's actually one of the primary reasons I'm here, Cheat Jai. Yeah. So Tirtha Maharaj, at the time you said that was his, name at the time. So
yeah.
I actually never met him since he's Tirtha Maharaj. We've emailed, but I can't wait to see him as Tirtha Maharaj. So what do you think he saw? He made a correct statement, and it took years to play out that you saw that none of those devotees were going to make it. So how do you think he knew that? I mean, that's a pretty catch-all statement. But he saw something, and he's sharing that with you. So what do you think?
I think he saw some lack of seriousness or lack of sobriety in these devotees. I think he saw a tendency to quarrel. Just like, I'm not relating Tirtha Maharaj to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, but it's similar principle. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he told Srila Prabhupada, when Prabhupada was a householder at Radhakund, they were there, and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur told Srila Prabhupada that there'll be fire in the mutt, which means the temple, there's going to be fire there. Means problems, issues. And yeah, sure enough, it all played out, big fire. And it went on for, many, many years. Court case, huge. I visited that temple, actually, Bagh Bazaar in Kolkata. Beautiful temple, still there. And one devotee brought me there. And, looking at it, how beautiful it is and how big it is, you can imagine it. And when it was first built and everything, quite a... but yeah, the devotee was showing me the different rooms and things of the building. And he was saying that this is the room, these were some of the rooms that they were fighting over, because it was a good room because it had the breeze of the Ganga coming, and so yeah, that temples had so many sannyasis. I was so shocked. Yeah, he also passed away at that Bagh Bazaar, so it's the room's there still. And there's anyways, it's a side point, but so yeah, beautiful deities also there. So he was seeing that based on their mentality and based on how things were going. And he made a comment, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He said, I made what do you say, paupers into kings, something like that. Means he gave them all this opulence, and it seemed they didn't do well with that. Anyways, so Tirtha Maharaj, he was seeing, or Mahatattva Prabhu at the time, I feel that he was seeing some lack of sobriety, some tendency to quarrel, some tendency to envy, some lower mode, kind of deep lower modes going on, passion. Now all these people, they're all, like I said, many of them are still around, but anyway, so that, yeah.
And those, if unresolved, they're toxic to devotional life. He could see if these he's seen these tendencies. If these tendencies aren't corrected, they're not going to make it. He can see.
Yeah.
They're that extreme. So I'm being called the kitchen, but I had an actual question because it's based on what Maharaj has taught me and what you said too. You would encourage me in Govardhan to walk every square inch of the temple at least once a week. Maharaj does that on a daily basis. And his philosophy is that out of creation, maintenance, and destruction, maintenance is the hardest part. So I was wondering why, you were talking about that earlier, like maintaining. Why do you think maintenance is the hardest part of that?
Well, I mean, it's
formula?
easy to destroy things, right? You just, and also you just like leave things. You just like leave things, and they naturally erode. That's just the nature of the world, you know. So, and it's easy. Yeah, again, it's easy to destroy things, right? Like a car, for example. You know, it's easy to run the thing down, crash it, right? But it's much more easy. It's much more difficult to create a car. I mean, it's much more difficult to maintain a car, right? So yeah. So it's easy to destroy things, and it's easy to create things. I mean, just like a child, for example. I mean, people, they have children, right? Okay, destroy and but they have children, but it's much easier to have children, but it's much more easy to maintain. I mean, it's much more difficult to maintain them, right? So yeah, it's just practical, yeah. So therefore, they say Vishnu's in charge of that. So, all right. Granted, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.